The City of Rock Hill, Piedmont Medical Center, and a number of other great partners have managed to give out around 25,000 COVID-19 vaccinations since opening the doors to a community clinic there at the Galleria 2 months ago. But there's no way it could have happened without a tremendous volunteer force. People are needed, of course, on the medical side to give out the shots, but there are dozens of jobs you'd probably likely never think of that are required to keep the operation moving as smoothly as it is. Up to 100 volunteers a day are needed there on site.
Rock Hill is the most amazing community I've ever lived in.
It's a diverse community. It's loving community, hospitable.
It's a community that almost in every case, whenever there's a need, they come together.
I've been here almost 40 years in Rock Hill, and I've never quite seen a community like this that just rolls up its sleeves no matter what the issue is and gets the problem solved.
Rock Hill is a city of about 75,000 people. We're the 5th largest city in South Carolina.
I've been here 33 years. I've seen it really triple in size.
Rock Hill is growing tremendously. And so we have a lot of people who moved from here from different places.
This town really pulls together on a daily basis, for crying out loud. The leadership that we have here in town and have had for a good number of years is so inclusive.
Back in the late 80s, we had a mayor, Betty Jo Ray, and city manager at the time, Joe Lanford, that created the Empowering the Vision initiative. And that went from the late 80s to just at the turn of the century, where we re-identified ourselves because the textile industry was leaving.
And our forefathers fortunately saw textiles are leaving. What are we going to do? I mean, we had a bleachery downtown that had 30% of the city population as its workforce. We had about 13,000 people working there. And at that time, the city population was only about 30,000. So when you start seeing places like that close down, what do you do? And our folks said, we need to bring in some other businesses, smaller manufacturing. And they really started building these business parks, bringing in people that would hire 1,000 people as opposed to 12,000 people. And that kind of started it.
And that's, I think, the key to Rock Hill is how they treat everybody with respect. They don't blow you off. They don't push you under the table. And they are willing to address tough issues. And this thing of putting the vaccine clinic together was definitely an amazing feat of accomplishment.
There's nothing wrong with Rock Hill that can't be fixed by what's right with Rock Hill.
There's a lot of heroes in this story, not the least of which is John Geddes, the mayor.
Well, I think our success was because we were working together on bigger things well before the pandemic or a public emergency arose.
My husband, Rick, is on the DHEC board.
DHEC serves as the state health agency for South Carolina, and we specifically manage the allocation and distribution of vaccine to a majority of our providers in South Carolina.
I sit on the board for DHEC, and we had a meeting in Columbia where details of the numbers of vaccinations and vaccine movement and so forth in South Carolina were shared with us.
I can vividly remember one morning sitting at the kitchen table, and he looked up and he said, "People have no idea about what's going to happen. The vaccine is coming and there's no way to distribute it."
Behind the scenes, you had the mayor, you had Jimmy Bagley, our deputy city manager, and our city manager, and different people working on this.
Greenville had already vaccinated, thousands of people, and some of the other, Richland and Columbia had numbers, but York County didn't have numbers and didn't have a plan.
We, like every other community, had been told and knew that there was a vaccine that was ready to be distributed to the people of our country. And we have one hospital in York County, Piedmont Medical Center.
At the conclusion of the meeting, I drove to Rock Hill, went directly to Piedmont Medical, walked in and said, "I'm with DHEC and I'm here to help you." And after the laughter stopped, I began my conversations with Mark Nosaka.
And they were calling Mark up saying, "There's a light coming at the end of this tunnel, but it's a train and it's going to run you over. We've got to figure out how to get these vaccines into the community in an orderly fashion."
The governor started doing his, I'm going to call it the tour of shame, where he was going around looking at things, fussing at people about why they weren't doing more. So we knew he was coming to Rock Hill to say, "How's it going? What do you need? What's going on?" And we said, "What are we going to tell him when he gets here?"
I said to Mark, "You're probably not aware, of the freight train headed your way on this vaccination thing, but it is going to get quite serious, and we're going to have to step up and do something ourselves to solve the problem.
The CEO of that hospital, Mark Nasaka, is just a good guy. And when we knew that these vaccines were out there, he called and said, Mayor, I may need some help. Would you mind sending a police officer over just so we can make sure that if it gets a little unruly, we can handle that? And I said, of course, we'll do that, Mark, but your footprint of your hospital, you're not going to be able to handle that. And maybe later that day or the next day called again and says, well, maybe we need more than one police officer. I said, no, you need more than this. Trust me, we really need to talk bigger about how you do these things.
That's when the CEO agreed, let's have a community meeting and find out how we can get out of this mess. And he said, it's going to happen. Somebody's going to ask why we aren't doing anything. And you guys can either say you just sit back and wait on somebody else to tell you what to do, or you can sit back and wait for somebody to pay you to do it, or you can just decide, hey, you're going to be part of the team and figure out what we're going to do to fix this.
So Wes, Senator Clymer, and Rick Lee and Mark Nasaka hosted a thing at the hospital one morning and invited a bunch of community leaders from Fort Mill, from Rock Hill, from York, from the county.
So each of us made our phone calls. We spent the weekend doing so. And on Monday, 2 days later, we pulled together a group at the hospital of about 50 people.
I was invited to a meeting one morning, and I went to the meeting that was at Piedmont Medical Center. And I know we were in this crisis with the pandemic and all.
Basically had a meeting that said, we've got a problem coming. We've got to get this vaccine out.
The meeting was to talk with those individuals who were there about forming a community vaccination clinic.
Mark's pitch to the group was, we need the public to stand up and do this because we've got to run a hospital. We got to take care of the sick people that are coming in day after day. We need the community to take care of this.
And he said, we don't have the resources and don't have a mechanism to really set up for vaccines. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, it's a hospital, but they're made to treat really sick people. They're not really made to run a vaccination clinic. The second problem they had is they didn't have 33,000 square feet of space to put people. They had a conference room. So when they did their own hospital employees, it was a conference room that's made to sit 20 people. And that was the largest space they had. And you think, well, it's a big old hospital. It is. But if you think about it, it's all divided up into rooms. So the other problem they had is they didn't have anywhere to put check-in, injector sites, and then a weight room to monitor people. So in addition to the parking issue, they could only take about 20 people at a time.
So when Mark called and we started having these meetings, it really was about how we could assist the hospital in providing their services to the people of our community, because the hospital had to get the shots as they got them from DHEC. They had to sign them in and sign them out to this facility and actually administer the shots or oversee the administration of the shots.
And they talked about what was needed and the different roles that were needed, and even kind of a time frame when they would like to start, which was going to be really soon.
So Jimmy and I, we're talking and had been talking for the last several days of what do we do? How do we help? How do we get this done? And at that meeting, when we were sitting there that morning, I looked at Jimmy and said, we got to go find a location. He said, the Norman family, Ralph Norman, who's our congressman from the 5th Congressional District, they own this mall. They just bought the mall, and there's some vacant stores there. How about we reach out and see if that might work? And immediately Jimmy started calling, and immediately that day, the Normans were in. Comporium, which is our communications company here in Rock Hill, we called them up and said, we're going over there right now, and we'll wire it up so that you can get all the connectivity you need. Called the York County Natural Gas Authority. They said, we're over there right now. We'll be there in 30 minutes to get the heating and all that lined up so we can go. And in 8 days, we went from a meeting to operate.
We had planned on opening, it was going to be about day 9 or 10. And then the pharmacy called me from the hospital and said, hey, we know you're planning on opening next Wednesday or Thursday, but DHEC just called and said there was a site that couldn't use all their allocation, and they'd already pulled it out of the deep freeze. And they said, we've got 5 days. Can you open this Friday? And I'm, oh my gosh, it's Wednesday, And
so instead of an opening day of 400, we ended up needing to put 650 shots in people's arm 4 days earlier than we planned on opening up the clinic. And Jimmy Bagley was okay with that. Like, we just did it.
The way I think just our community historically has just been successful in so many ways. As you start small, you get a core group.
We set up a group of ladies whose responsibility it was to solve problems.
So he asked if I would be willing to partner with a couple of ladies that happened to just be ladies. There were 5 of us in the beginning, and we were going to be the administrators.
Beings, my husband, is the hospital administrator of Piedmont Medical Center. And at the time, the inventory of the Pfizer was being managed by his pharmacist. He saw that she was getting snowed under, the pharmacist, with crunching numbers. And so when Mark got that call, how many vaccine shots do you want? He just looked at me, who has a math degree. Numbers are my thing, operations, etc. And he said, will you please help with the inventory? And I said, yes.
So that was a good partnership with the hospital, having a liaison, really. And she also knew all the volunteers from the hospital. We call them the stripers. So she was really good at coordinating what the candy stripers would do on a regular basis.
My gift seemed to be the flow and the keeping of the people moving.
Kim is Rick Lee's wife, so she's very close to DHEC. She's very close to what's going on.
And in the beginning, honestly, it was looking at that humongous room and just visually divided it to function as a clinic, going through this maze, the physical part of how do we get those massive numbers in here and make it work. Well, nobody had done this before.
Other than a team of volunteers showing up and an incentivized city of Rock Hill, most things did not work as designed for the first several weeks. And the only thing that held us together was what we were doing for the community, which was bringing hope. So we just went back to the drawing board every day and kept trying to do it better.
And Chrissy was one that really wasn't a candy striper. She didn't really come from the hospital. She's on the school board and from Fort Mill, and she just decided she wanted to make sure Fort Mill was represented in this program.
The first few weeks were probably the most remarkable of all the time there. You have to realize at this point in time, the vaccine had just become available to anyone other than medical staff. It was largely the elderly population. So when they would come through the door, they had an appointment, which remember back to the days when people would stay up all night and hit the refresh button trying to get that appointment because they were so hard to come by. And so these people were so excited because they had gotten an appointment. It was pretty emotional. I mean, you would have people that would say how excited they were because they've got a new grandkid that was born that they haven't seen yet.
You know, we had these older people, especially coming in, and you see them leave, you could tell that they had some hope. And, you know, at that time, there wasn't much hope to go around.
I think the thing that struck me the most about our operation was how it incrementally changed day after day after day.
Each time I went to volunteer, something had changed. They had improved something.
There were incremental changes almost every week.
So at every station throughout the process, the people who were there would come up with new ideas on how to make it more efficient.
Towards the end of the day, there was always a review and a pull-up of what worked well, what didn't.
Everybody had their own segments that I may not necessarily have gotten that involved in every day. I was there all day, but I may not have seen everything they had to do. So when I said, hey, what went well today? What could we do better tomorrow? And they would come back and say, hey, I really think this table ought to be over there.
Brainstorming, I saw a bottleneck here. What can we do about that?
We didn't do it at first week. And then we figured out, I said, hey, this isn't working. Jimmy Bagley doesn't know everything. And I asked the guys, I said, hey, y'all tell me what we could do better.
Where in the beginning, I bet we were probably 20 or more minutes getting people through for those first few days. By the time we got to the end, we were down to 12. And probably could have driven it down some more.
Part of the whole thing about this clinic is you want to keep people apart, right? I mean, by definition, everybody that's coming in is unvaccinated at that point in time. And so they're all at risk, especially at the beginning. They're high risk. That's the reason that they were on the list for the earlier waves.
We even put on the floor, we had dots on the floor where people were to stand 6 feet apart, and we'd number them.
It was like the United States military was running it. From post to post to post to post, everybody knew exactly what to do and how it was going to get done.
I never heard one complaint from the public. The public came in every time. They said, this is the most efficient thing I've ever seen in my life, because you were in and out. So even on a bad day, we still had people in and out.
One person emailed me and said, Walt Disney World and Chick-fil-A haven't got anything on you guys.
So we started out with 7 or 8 checkpoints along the way. So the first thing you did was you showed your ID and made sure you had an appointment. Then you sat down and filled out your paperwork. Then you went to somewhere to get your card. Then you actually went and got your injection. Then you scheduled your second appointment. Then you sat down to be monitored. Then they checked you out. So it was multiple steps. That was a lot of people moving around. So we also decided to combine some of the activities and to go online with some of the activities. You checked in, made sure your paperwork was in order, went straight to the injector station where they filled out the card, made sure that you had signed all the waivers. And then as you left, they scheduled your next appointment. So there were less checkpoints along the way.
When patients arrive to the clinic, we have somebody stationed outside to welcome them, ask if they have any COVID symptoms, take their temperature, and guide them into line to check in. Our greeters direct people into line to check in. At the check-in station, we verify their ID, find them in VAMs, and provide them with the paperwork that they need to complete to go through the process. This is the area where our patients complete their paperwork. When they're finished, they raise their hand and somebody comes over to check it and guides them into line to the next station. As soon as they get up, our volunteers sanitize each chair. At this point in the process, the patients come up, our greeters ask if it's their first or second dose. If it's their first dose, they direct them over to make an appointment for their second dose. And if it's their second dose, they put them in line to get their shot. If it's somebody's first dose, we bring them over here and make them an appointment for their second dose before they leave the building. This is our vaccination station. We typically have 20 stations rolling at any given time. There's a clerical volunteer who documents the shot into VAMs and the person with medical credentials to actually give the shot. And this is our observation area. So after people receive their shot, they sit for 15 to 30 minutes, depending on if they have any history of reaction.
You improve efficiency by really very, very, very small things. We were able to eliminate one of the requirements on the form was your social security number. Well, as it turned out, you didn't have to do the social security number. There wasn't a requirement, actually. It's just somebody put it on the form. So we took that off the form. Well, that saved a minute of time for each individual because they would invariably raise their hand and they'd ask the question, do I have to give you my social security number? Well, we eliminated all those conversations just by simply taking it off the form. Something changed every day. As we all got trained and felt better in our positions, it became much smoother, although it really wasn't not smooth from the beginning. It was just everybody learning the roles. Once people were inside of the vaccination area and all their paperwork was done and they were standing waiting to be dispatched to a desk or a table for a shot, we used a paddle system for communicating with the vaccine runners. We had these paddles we would hold up to indicate that we were ready for somebody to come get a shot. They would hold up a green paddle, and the person who was responsible for managing the line of people waiting for their shots, they would direct them to the green paddle. If they were out of vaccine or needed more, they'd have another color paddle they'd hold up. And the people in the very back of the building who were putting vaccines into needles, they would see that and they'd have a runner who would dispatch up to take care of it. Chopping away 15 seconds here, a minute there, 2 minutes there, it adds up really fast.
And it went so smooth. People would come in, they would check in, and then they would go over to a station where they sit down and fill out their paperwork, and then someone was over there to help them, and people were there wiping down the clipboards and wiping down the pens.
One of the biggest problems that we had was handling clipboards.
The clipboards were big, and we had a whole team of folks, probably 7 or 8 that worked on clipboards.
Now, you wouldn't think about that until you're suddenly faced with 200 clipboards, because we had to clean every clipboard, we had to collect every clipboard, We had to reload them with the papers, necessary for the folks to fill out. And we had to redistribute the clipboards to the front desk so that they could give them to the patients as they came through into the holding area. So it was a cycle with those stupid clipboards.
And we had a team of people that all day long, all they did was collect papers.
Well, they don't jump out of the box by themselves.
I mean, just collect papers and put them on a clipboard. I mean, you're doing 1,500, 1,600 people a day. That's a lot of that.
So you've got to have somebody who sits there and puts every packet together and then does the clipboard deal. And I can't tell you how much time was spent doing that simple task, but it would have stopped operations entirely if we didn't have that set up.
Yeah, you almost can't have enough people because there's always something that comes up every day that, especially in the beginning, that you just didn't realize you needed somebody to go do that.
It was just amazing, the number of people who showed up for this.
That's just this town. This town has a vibe about it, and the citizens. We all pull together when we have to.
Oh, Rock Hill has a long and distinguished history of volunteerism. When you look around at the types of things we do, it demonstrates that it just is ingrained in the community.
We had more volunteers than we had spots available.
We had over 1,600 volunteers through the life of this.
I would say there was incentive to do the best we could for Rock Hill community, York County.
What I did was I sent the information out to individuals that, volunteers were needed.
My HR director took care of really all the volunteers. And at one time, we had 80, 90 volunteers a day.
So we realized we could have more injectors going at a time, more people documented, which meant we needed that many more volunteers. One of the things that I helped with a lot was recruiting volunteers because, as you can imagine, a school district has a pretty broad volunteer network, right? The people that run our PTOs and PTAs and help with sports and all those things. Well, none of that was happening. And so we were able to leverage the skill sets and, knowledge and connections of a whole lot of different people. And I think it turned out a whole lot better than if the city had just said, okay, we're gonna do a clinic.
It's not that they don't give good shots. It's that if you want to have community involvement, you have to start by bringing in the mayor, bringing in the city council, the county council, other groups in the community who are charitable groups, as well as volunteers. That's how you make a locally staffed and locally operated clinic a success.
Although we were led by many of our volunteers, it was our city staff, our department heads that were there every day, organizing, providing that continuity, because you can't have a bunch of volunteers come in every day and relearn what they weren't there the day before to know. You have to have a good spine, a good connective people in there, and those were city employees.
Volunteers are great, but as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we needed early on was consistency. And, sometimes it's hard to take a volunteer off the street and stress them a little bit, because if they don't like it, they can leave, or they can start giving bad customer service. And we're like, no, that's not what we want. So how do you really manage that? So we knew we needed city people really in key areas. And again, I worked with our HR department day one and said, I've got to have a regular rotation of city employees that listen to me. They know our customer service environment. They know what we expect, but they'll step up and get the job done. So we did have a lot of staff, and I had pretty much every department. I said, look, you've got to give me some people. And there were a couple of them that I voluntold them that I need your guy here and I'm going to have him for the next 6 months,
This can't just happen, and it did not happen with just a bunch of volunteers. There was a lot of structure to this, and that is the one thing that I didn't really express that I need to.
The court system was shut down. So the court system let us have 2 or 3 of their investigators and stuff and said, use them as long as you need. That was great, because they were our runners and they would pick up the vaccine and take it to the tables that needed them, It
was surprising how many people wanted to do more. And if it got a little bit slow, they're ready to expand and go do some more stuff.
Basically, I was doing data entry, which I thoroughly enjoyed. My responsibility to the nurse was to flag if anybody had a health issue.
I loved working there. It was a hoot, I have to tell you. I had a great job, and it suited my personality well. I was kind of the gatekeeper over where people would sit and complete their paperwork. And as they completed their paperwork, I or the other members of the team that I had there would collect the papers, collect the clipboards and pencils, and then I would turn around and look at the registration desks behind me to see if there was space available for people to move on through my gate.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed clients. One fellow, The nurse was sterilizing the shot, where she's going to put the shot. And he's like, ow, ow, oh. He goes, sir, I haven't given you a shot yet. Oh.
A lot of the people, particularly in the beginning when we had primarily seniors, a lot of them were concerned about what they were doing. And invariably what I would do is I would stop them, I'd look at them and I'd say, your flight to Hawaii is boarding in 15 minutes. If you'll go to desk number 3 and ask for a window seat and free drinks, they'll get you lined up so that you can board in a few minutes. Finally, they'd start smiling and away they went.
And like I said, some people are scared, so you just try to help them relax and say, really, there's nothing to it.
And then the mayor, every morning, the mayor addressed the people.
A lot of people met the mayor, never met the mayor before. So having him there every morning to kick it off.
By and large, my time was the first of every morning to welcome our volunteers, thank them, and try to encourage them, not only to take a second and think about what they've done and to realize for the rest of their lives, they will have saved someone's life, kept people from getting sick. They would never know the names of those people, but there's no question that there are those people alive today and not sick, not bad sick today because of that clinic, and reminding our volunteers of that and encouraging them to go home and call their loved ones who might be hesitant about getting a vaccine and just saying, you need to come here. They've got this down. You'll be safe. I'll watch over you.
The one major area that didn't work as intended for us was the federal VAMS system. The problem was that in order to use the VAMS system, you had to have email.
We were using the VAMS system from the CDC, the Vaccine Administration Management System, and it required people to actually go online and register with an email address.
Sometimes they would come in and they only had one email, so they actually only had one appointment, even though there were 2 of them.
In the future, we would want to consider a walk-in model versus having a scheduling system.
The folks who didn't have a VAMS account, we partnered with Good Pharmacy here in town.
I mean, it's not just giving a shot. People think that they're just going to walk in, we're just going to give them a shot.
And they were able to take those individuals and were willing to take those individuals and sit down with them with a computer one by one and open a VAMS account.
We were taking, their ID, putting them into VAMS and doing it that way as like a walk-in appointment.
And so I guess we ran probably 120 or 30, maybe more each week on Friday through the Good Pharmacy folks.
It really started to catch fire, and we had more and more people coming in. Then school teachers were allowed, and so we would close the clinic for a day to the general population and run our school teachers through.
We created an industry day each week during our operations, and we would contact a large industry or a school district and say, if you'd like to get all of your people vaccinated in a very short time, we'll give you an allotted period of time in our daily operations so that you can bring every employee at one time and minimize the disruption to your organization.
The city of Rock Hill was able to identify several dates that would be available to our faculty and staff.
As soon as teachers became eligible, we started trying to figure out how to coordinate to get as many of our teachers vaccinated as quickly as possible.
So Christy did a great job helping organize some of that. And she was a really good resource because she knows all the other school boards and who's the key personnel there. And she helped call and said, hey, Jimmy said he's got 200 vaccines. Can you get me 50 people this afternoon? And she did that with all the school districts. So she really was kind of my liaison reaching out to them.
We allowed our school districts to go virtual for 2 days, one for the first vaccine and one for the second vaccine, so that we were able to get our teachers in. They were not obligated to be in the classroom that day. We had all of our school nurses come that day so that we had more injectors. And we brought all the teachers, which we included bus drivers, nutrition staff, teachers, substitutes, everyone who was on our payroll in any way was eligible to come in that day. And we were thrilled that we were able to get 500 plus teachers in a single swing.
We had a very robust response the first day. And my recollection is just on the first day alone, we had some 250 or more faculty and staff take advantage of that opportunity. The vaccination clinic was a wonderful step forward, not only in encouraging our faculty, staff, and students to get vaccinated and illustrating, and this is an important point, how easy it was to get vaccinated. So we were thrilled, frankly, to have the access to the City of Rock Hill Vaccination Center.
We started out doing a couple hundred a day, and we ramped up to doing 1,500 a day.
We had one day where we did 1,575 vaccinations. That is phenomenal for a volunteer-run organization.
In 59 days of operation, we put in over 50,000 shots in arms. It was just really something.
There was one lady in particular that I'll never forget. I mean, her tears just flowed, and I'm probably going to cry thinking about it, but she was so excited to have it so that she could see her mother. She hadn't seen her mother in 8 months. And just seeing those little moments like that make you feel like everything is worth it.
Well, on our last day of the clinic, and we crossed the 51,000 vaccinations number, I could see half of the folks had tears coming down their cheeks because this had been a life-changing event for them. And they all felt fulfilled and gratified to have been able to be a part of it.
It makes one thankful that our infrastructure was already here, and not just the physical infrastructure, but the organizations and the people who were willing to work together.
There's always a period of time during which you have to adjust to who's going to do what and how do we work together. And what I've learned over the years is that if you don't care who gets the credit for what occurs, it's amazing how much you can get done.
The City of Rock Hill just partnered beautifully with Piedmont Medical Center. I mean, that's a rarity right there, that they sat down at the table. So get ready and have that in your community before a challenge comes.
The folks that I work with on a daily basis truly have an interest, and they truly care about the health and well-being of all South Carolinians. And they'll continue to do so after this pandemic's over.
I think it was a great success from the standpoint of being able to get so many diverse groups to put their egos aside and to focus on what is best for our customers, what is best for getting the maximum number of shots out and into arms.
Leadership like that just leads people to want to get involved because they feel valued. And that's what we feel here. And that's what I would recommend for any town.
So I think something that we learned throughout the pandemic was that we really needed to continue to maintain our communications with our providers. This would allow them to plan accordingly, staff accordingly, and also make sure that they were not over-promising and under-delivering to the patients that live in their communities.
I think if you have people who have a history of working in the community and volunteerism or community public service, that they tend to be more inclined to step up when a crisis arises. And so if I was to give any advice to another community, it would be to recognize that core group of volunteers that you have in your community and leaders that you have in your community, and to recognize the strengths or weaknesses that they have. And when the time comes for response and to step up when there's an emergency such as this one, reach out to one or two of those folks and pick their brains and see what they can do to envision a response to the emergency. And I guarantee you that if you pull in people who have that history behind them and are creative, that you can solve or respond effectively to any crisis that comes into the community.